He sat me down after my freshman year at Notre Dame and he said, Noah, you don't have a head game. The only thought I had was like, what is a head game? I've never heard these words and I don't know what that is. One of the things that I've learned now as a coach, it's our job as coaches and mentors, not just to share knowledge, it's to sell the players and the kids on the knowledge that you're providing them. And so it's not enough to say, hey, you need to work out. You have to show them why they need to work out, what they're doing to work out, and what that's going to provide to them to get that buy-in from them so that they take the steps necessary to make the change to be the best version of themselves.
That was Noah Babin, former Carolina Hurricanes prospect and author of the Mental Manual for Athletes, How to Play the Head Game. And you are listening to the Up My Hockey Podcast with Jason Padola.
Just watch me now.
Welcome to Up My Hockey with Jason Padola, where we deconstruct the NHL journey, discuss what it takes to make it, and have a few laughs along the way. I'm your host, Jason Padola, a 31st overall draft pick who played 41 NHL games, but thought he was destined for 1,000. Learn from my story and those of my guests. This is a hockey podcast about reaching your potential. Hello there, and welcome back to the Up My Hockey Podcast for episode 117. Episode 117, we have Noah Babin on today. Noah Babin is a coach for the Junior Gulls, currently, San Diego Junior Gulls. I believe he's coaching the U14 ranks. And Noah has an awesome story, which is why he's on. And he also resonates with what the theme of Up My Hockey usually is, which he has a personal, direct connection to the benefits of mindset and the mental game, or as he calls it, the head game. Noah was from Florida. I won't tell all of his story because he tells it in the first half, or essentially this whole interview. We do have a few tangents, but we're talking about Noah and his story and his unlikely story, especially because he is, from Florida in a place that didn't have ice where he was at. And he didn't touch ice until he was 12 years old. And then he was part of the National Development Program team at 16. So in 4 years, he went from having never skated to being one of the top 6-7 defensemen in the entire country. So that in of itself is pretty wild. So we cover that, his ascent up the ranks of amateur hockey in the United States. Talk about the development program for those interested in that, his experience within it. But more importantly, we talk about Noah and his association with and connection to mindset. And for me, that's where I think the underlying theme is here of this entire interview. And it is something that comes up quite often for me and with parents and even with athletes, whether I'm working, with the younger age groups or junior age athletes that are trying to get either into college or get into, being drafted and get into the pro ranks, whatever the case may be. There is generally a misunderstanding about what, again, as Noah calls it, the head game is, or the mental game, or mental toughness, or mindset, or mental fitness. Whatever you want to call it, I think that there's a disconnection with it. Ideally, primarily because what you don't know, you don't know. And you've probably heard me say that before. But Noah was a prime example of what this was. To his own testament, and Noah is humble, and you'll hear in this interview, he's quick to put himself down, but he did say that he did have a high level of skill. He had a high level of skill. He did not necessarily fully understand the game of hockey because of his upbringing, but he could skate and he could stick handle and he could shoot. And because he could do these things, he got through the door. What he didn't know was that he lacked a mental game. He lacked a head game. He didn't know what he didn't know. And it wasn't exposed to him until he ended up getting to college with his scholarship to Notre Dame that he found out what the head game was. And he became a much more complete player. And because of that, he ended up getting an NHL contract. And I won't tell you all the entire story, but it goes on from there. But the head game was the missing piece. Now for players, now to loop back to what I was talking about earlier, if you don't know what you don't know, then you don't understand what mindset is or how a mental game can help you or what the head game is. And if all things have been fine, and to Noah's account, they had been fine, right? From 12 to 16 to the National Development Program. Like, what could be wrong, right? There was nothing wrong. He was like flying. He was among the best 6 of his age group. But he became exposed at a certain point. He became exposed because he didn't understand what was missing. And then when it was missing, it became very apparent and he didn't know how to fill the gap or how to fill the holes. And he was left feeling unempowered, unconfident, self-esteem down, all these things, because it was now beyond the skills and the skating that he had, which had gotten him into these places in the first place. So if you are a parent or if you're one of these players that is a good hockey player, if you have not had to fight through some high level of adversity yet, if you cannot define your mental game in terms that you could tell me what you are doing and how you are prepared for things that are going to come, how you manage your thoughts, how you prepare for what you have not yet achieved or where you have not been, then you probably don't have a mental game. You don't have mental fitness. This is something that you could be working at. And believe me, you want to be prepared for the storm. And you don't want to be trying to prepare for the storm in the storm. There is a storm coming. There is some type of thing coming. If you listen to my podcast at all in any way, shape, or form, we're 117 episodes in. And almost every, if not every, athlete that has come on this program has had some severe challenge, some severe test, some defining moment that they could have gone another way. They could have quit. They could have turned the corner. Hockey wasn't for them. They could have made some excuse, but they didn't. Somehow they persevered. Somehow they got through. Somehow they used their mental toughness, their fitness, their mental fitness, their mindset to get through it. And they got through it better, stronger, better than they were before. And without that defining moment, they would not be the player they were. But the problem is here, these are all successful people. These are all people that have made it to where they wanted to get to the NHL, to whatever level they want to, fill in the blank. There are many people that I am not interviewing that did not make that connection. They weren't prepared for the storm, and the storm became bigger than they could manage, and they left. They quit. They did something else. Now they're doing something else, and they don't have the story these other people do. So this is just, for me, a little bit of a cry out to you, and for those people who think, no, I got this. I don't need it, or it's not interesting, or maybe it's not for me. It is honestly for everyone. And that's the thing here with Noah too. So now Noah has written a book called The Mental Manual for Athletes, How to Play the Head Game. And he helps his athletes that work with him, I believe. I don't know exactly in what formal capacity he works with athletes, if it is in the same way that I do. But again, for me, I am not worried about advertising somebody who plays in the same space as me. That has never been a problem for me. I believe that there are so many athletes out there with so few people able to help. And if Noah's one of these people that's able to help, and if you relate to Noah's story, you can definitely read Noah's book and should read Noah's book, and you should seek him out and work with him. The thing is, for me, I want athletes to have the best experience with the sport that they can, and in life for that matter. And the mindset required to be successful, to be your best, to get through these challenges, these tests, this adversity, to be able to persevere with your practice habits when things are good, so you can continue to get better and build the self-confidence and self-esteem required to get to where you want to go. All these things are wrapped into this piece called mindset. And again, There are many people to work with. There are many books to read. There are many videos to watch. I'm not telling you, and I don't expect you all to think that I am the answer and my programs are the answer. But you need it. Let's just agree on that. If I can get you to agree on that, then we are moving in the right direction. Don't feel that you're somebody that is beyond the training and is beyond what is needed to make you be the best that you can be. Uh, yeah, I mean, it's just such a. I hate to go so deep on this, but it's generally speaking the person that has been through something, young teenager, preteen, late teens. Usually the people that end up working with me have gone through something and their confidence is now low and they need to get their confidence back. So that's fine. If that's the entryway for the majority of the people that work with me, that's fine. But do you see why it's frustrating for me? Because these people could have been prepared. They could have had it before, and they would have probably managed this adversity better. They wouldn't have had these really low moments. They would have been able to close the gap, as I call it mentally, find some opportunity in the challenge, and define themselves within that opportunity naturally, because that's part of their belief system. That's something that we work on with at Up My Hockey is your personal belief system. So why not work on this before something happens? Because this high performance is not just about the adversity that's in front of you. It is about how you prepare not only yourself physically, mentally, spiritually for your chosen sport, but also how you prepare for your games, how you recover from mistakes, how you identify and use your time. All these things are big pieces of your puzzle. And they're all, for me, fall under the umbrella of mindset. So whether it is a confidence issue, whether it is a a preparation issue, whether it is an inability to come from mistakes, whatever the piece of the puzzle is, there is some type of piece of the puzzle within mental toughness and mindset that you can work on right now. So with as far as Noah's concerned, again, he has the mental manual. He talks about that. He wrote it. He wrote it to try and be a brief introduction, a snapshot into, not super detailed, but like something that you can pick up and read. He says it's like 30 pages long. It's a great starting point to get associated with the mental game and the head game, and this is something that he recognized in his own career that was absolutely not only influential, but like dramatically a direct result of why he ended up getting to where he got to as a young player from Florida who had no idea what the mental game was. So yeah, I love the conversation with him. Long and short of it, his story is super unique. Noah, I believe, getting to know him a little bit through the hour and a half, like he just came from a different place, from a different mindset. He wasn't around the hockey culture and especially the Canadian hockey culture at the time it's just I really don't, I can't put it into words, but he almost seems like he kind of came from like a surf culture, although he didn't. He wasn't like from California, but he kind of comes at hockey from a different space. So I think listening to him and hearing him and where he came from, and probably even his approach now when he's working with athletes, it's from a little bit of a different spot that you might hear from me, yet we are speaking the same language. So for me, it was super cool. Noah seems like a great guy, likes to have a lot of fun, has a childlike enthusiasm, smile on his face when he's telling his stories and talking about these things that he's passionate about. So, just to get a little bit of him, you national U17 program, national U18 program. He was at Little Caesars before that. He was at Compuware before that. Then he got in with the Green Bay Gamblers of the USHL, where he had a real pivotal moment. I'll let you get there. That's a really interesting part of the conversation. Did earn his scholarship to Notre Dame, went there for 4 years, and then signed with the Carolina Hurricanes and played some AHL games with the Albany River Avs before he hurt himself. Never did get to wear the NHL jersey otherwise. Well, he did get to wear it in 2 pregame exhibition games, which is fantastic. They essentially do feel like NHL games. I know they don't count on your on your hockey card, but they're generally full houses. They're in NHL rinks. There's NHL players on the ice. You're wearing the NHL jersey. I mean, everything about it feels very, very similar to the real deal. So we got to play a couple of those, which he's very grateful for. But now, coaching in the youth ranks. So Enjoy the conversation. I know I did. Let's listen to my conversation with Noah Babin. First of all, you are a name that's a bit new to me. Michelle Garcia, one of the ladies that that works for me now. I shouldn't say one of. There is only one lady that works for me right now, fully. Had an experience with you with Caden, and she was like, you know what? I think you guys kind of speak the same language. I want to hook you guys up, and you were gracious enough to agree. So we're kind of both coming at this on the fly. But so why don't you tell us and me maybe just a little bit about yourself, maybe what you would call yourself at this point in your life with what you're doing, and maybe give a brief bio, and we'll get into it.
For sure. So the present day has found me in a hole of coaching youth hockey that was supposed to be 1 year long. That's now been a little over a decade. So in that decade of time, I've been fortunate enough to meet some unbelievable families, unbelievable kids, and really help mentor some kids to success. And I say that only because they've come back and expressed that to me, not self-professed. As many of us hockey players are, we're very afraid of tooting our own horns, I think. So that's what I've been doing in the game for the last 10 years. During that time, it came to my attention two things that were really lacking, especially here in the great state of California that I've landed in. Skills development and really high level hockey minds are not everywhere out here. So I've been able to add a lot of value that way, as well as we both share. I got introduced to the mental side of the game from Dave Poulin at Notre Dame. And I just realized that it just isn't something that's talked about enough at the younger ages. Kids are getting access to it when they reach the USHL or Division One, and some of them not until pros. And I just realized that most of the kids at a young age aren't getting that unless their parents already know the stuff, which is just as rare as you can be. So that's where I am now. In the past, I kind of had a fairy tale childhood that ended up with me signing a contract with the Carolina Hurricanes. I spent 2 years in their organization. That was definitely the highlight, or one of the highlights of my brief career. I had a congenital knee defect that kind of came to the forefront the first year that I signed. And that subsequently, my career was pretty much over as soon as I inked my first, NHL/AHL contract, which is pretty brutal, and had a lot of hard times in itself. But that's the 30,000-foot view.
Yeah, well, cool. Well, let's dive in. And that's the best part about running these things for an hour to an hour and 15, or sometimes, I've gone even longer, is that, you know what, it doesn't have to be the 30,000-foot view. We can kind of dive in, because I find that is really where the good stuff lives, is in the details. I think the devil's in the details. And I think that you probably wouldn't be doing what you're doing now if you didn't have your story. Is that accurate?
Accurate. Very accurate.
So the story is what matters. And that's kind of, I think we share a common bond when it comes to that, because, one of the things I say on the podcast at the intro, it's been there since day one, is that I played 41 games, but I thought it was going to be 1,000. If I played 1,000 games, I wouldn't be here talking to you. Probably.
I have a good story about that as well.
Right. So I think that life kind of handles things differently. And also, if I played those 1,000 games, I wouldn't be helping the kids that I'm helping. And I wouldn't have had 250 graduates to a program that probably would have never been created. And you know what I mean? So like things sometimes happen for a reason. And do I, if I reflect, would I like to play 1,000 games? Yeah, of course. Of course we'd be in a different scenario right now. But I do think that there's it's so rewarding, and there's such massive value to be able to use your own story and your own journey to be able to help. And it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing. So let's get in. I mean, you gave me a very brief overview when we tried this on for size the first time, coming from Florida. But why don't we talk about the youth hockey kind of experience there in Florida? Well, I think you're a little bit younger than me, but this would have been you'd have been pre-Florida Panthers even, and maybe even pre-Tampa Bay Lightning, right?
We started right about when they had the Stanley Cup run with the Rats. So we were right about, really it goes back to Do you remember when Wayne Gretzky had his hover puck thing? He had some kind of hover puck contraption that he sold, and my parents thought it was a good idea to buy that. So that started and found something in my little head at like 8 or 10 years old, and I got obsessed. I didn't stop playing with this thing. I played with it until it broke, and then that led into roller hockey, which led into us and me and my friends at like 10 years old playing on the front street. We had some, so unlike most people that grow up north playing on ponds, we got to play on a street. And the big day for us was they actually came through and repaved the street. And so we went from like really rough asphalt to really nice and groomed stuff. But they put in the little reflectors. So me, my friends, and my friends' parents and my parents went out there one night and we just hacked off all these little reflectors. And to this day, you can still go to Dahlia Avenue in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, and there's a strip of down the middle of the road without reflectors because we removed them all. So that's the humble beginnings. And from there, I was blessed with parents who were fanatical about helping their kids and giving them every opportunity they could. And so there was nowhere to play hockey. I mean, it just wasn't a thing. So my parents literally started a roller hockey league where I grew up. The Palm Beach Gardens Roller Hockey League. We played in parking lots. We had makeshift boards. I mean, it was about as grassroots as I think you can possibly get. I mean, we had construction walls for walls, like the orange stuff. And if you rubbed up against it, it'd tear your skin off. And like on the weekends, we'd have to go over there and we'd have to take out the old PVC pipes that was holding the boards up because sometimes they'd break. We put in new ones. Yeah. So from there, we got obsessed with roller hockey, and the family got.
How old are you at this point? Like, where are you in the journey?
12, probably.
Wow.
12, yeah. So
you're 12 and you haven't played ice hockey yet.
I haven't touched it yet. And so we are playing roller hockey nonstop, and then all of a sudden we hear rumors about an ice rink going up. And so I'll never, till the day I die, I won't forget. Me and my dad heard the rumors about this ice rink. So we go, oh my gosh. So we hop in the car, we drive to the facility, and the lights are on. And we're going, oh my God, there's somebody in there. So we go up to the glass, we put our heads on the glass, and we're looking in. Before anything's in, and I know that like the guy who built the rink now we're basically family. Uncle Charlie, he was a big help. So him and his friends, the first thing they did before they outfitted the building was put the ice sheet in. So they went in, they were skating. So me and my dad are on the window watching, going, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen. Like, these guys are playing ice hockey. This is unbelievable. Like, we were losing our minds. So Charlie eventually gets this rink built, Planet Ice in Palm Beach Gardens. And by this time, my parents had built up the roller hockey league to the point where we actually got the first year, I think it was the first year that we got real rinks. So like rinks with actual boards, like that weren't made out of PVC pipe. They opened up the ice rink in our local neighborhood. And man, people laugh about being rink rats. I was obsessed. And my parents, God bless them, they helped me. Every open skate, I was there. Every opportunity to skate, on anybody's practice, I was there. And so growing up, I got a lot of good influences from coaches and a lot of good people that were around that rink. But the irony is, I didn't really know hockey culture, and we didn't really know hockey players yet. And so the guys that I was looking up to, and I always laugh about it, it was Spike Garreau, Rob Salato, Don Stone, and Martin Malley, who played on the West Palm Beach Blades. And they were a part of, I think it was called the Sunshine Hockey League. And so to us, they were the greatest hockey players in the world. And so we would go to some of their games, and occasionally in the summer they'd skate with us. And it was just one of those things where, as a kid, it was just magical. And we were on the ice, I mean, nonstop, to the point, I tell the story that it got to a point where I was playing, like we were talking before, it was probably like midget B hockey when I was 14. So I started skating ice when I was 12. And so when I was 14, I started playing the highest level of midget double B or B hockey in Florida, and I was playing men's league. So Uncle Charlie let me play in the men's league with anybody, and if anybody had a problem with that, they had to talk to Uncle Charlie, and you didn't mess with Uncle Charlie. And so my number was at the rink, plastered on the wall for men's league. And so if the guys needed a player, they knew, call Noah. And honest to God, my dad would come in. He'd wake me up on a school night at like 9 o'clock and be like, hey, you want to go skate? Yeah. So we'd get in the car, we'd drive to the rink, I'd show up, and it'd be like, what color jersey do I need, a dark jersey or light jersey? Like, oh, we're dark. Okay. Hop on the ice, play, wake up, and then go home, go back to bed. And it was magical. And I'll never forget, it culminated in, I don't remember what year this was, but Charlie finally said, he goes, Babs, do you want a key? To me and my dad, and we're like, do we want a key? He goes, yeah, come skate. Like, do you want a key to come skate? We're like, yeah, we want a key.
Right.
And so fast forward from being able to like looking in that rink going, oh my God, I can't believe Charlie actually gave us a key. And so me and my dad would wake up. My dad would wake up with me. We'd wake up like 3:30, 4 a.m. and we'd go to the rink. And in Florida, I'm sure you know this, the humidity down there is just atrocious. And so water would be dripping from the ceiling, and there'd be those big notches on the ice. So we'd have to go out beforehand because there's nobody there. We're the only ones there. And like chip all that off. And then I would just drill for, we get on at 4. The figure skaters were on at 5:30. So I'd have to get off at 5:15. So we'd get an hour and 15 in the morning, almost anytime we wanted it. That's crazy. It's crazy. And that's what I say, like this, we were laughing before about this like crazy golden path. The older I get, the more I realize, it's absurd, this stuff, and the people that were there to influence and help me.
Right.
And which goes back to your point about helping the kids and being involved. And
well, so Uncle Charlie, let's talk about, so you didn't know him when you're looking through the glass, then you ended up getting to know him?
Very well, to the point where we still talk to this day. He's the best. He's a big Italian guy. He wore the same, he's such a great character. He wore the exact same outfit every day, to the point where I went over to his house and finally like looked in his closet. I'm like, there's no way this guy just has like 30 of the same outfits. He did. It was black dress shoes, black shorts, and a black wind blazer. And that was Uncle Charlie. He's an Italian from New York, and it was
his rink?
It was his rink. He opened it.
So like he built it, like his money, he built it and he ran it.
Yep.
What was his motivation?
He loves the game of hockey. Like beyond anything, to the point where his son now, Anthony, wound up having 2 boys. They grew up playing in Florida. They were down at Coral Springs because the rink that we all grew up at is no longer there. So they wind up moving up to New York. Charlie moved up to New York so that he could coach and help out and be around the kids.
That's crazy.
He just loves the game.
It's probably a good investment for him too. I'm sure that thing's worth a hell of a lot of money now and being used a ton.
It's gone now.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. So I was too young to understand the dynamics of it. I just know that I came home one summer because I eventually left, and there's no more rink. And I was told that all the guys showed up one night and they had one final skate and then just basically tore the place down. I don't know why.
I wonder, because like, boy, the game's blowing up since then. You mentioned the Rats. That was when I was with Florida that year, and I was in that. I was part of that whole run. Yeah.
So the Scott Mellenby on the knees game.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't there for that because that was pre-playoff run, right? Like when he actually killed the Rat. But yeah, like by the time I got there, Spokane Chiefs were finished, and they called me up after our playoff run. I was actually supposed to play in a game against Boston. Like when I first landed, Ray Shepard was hurt. I did the pregame skate. I came to the rink like with my suit on. I was supposed to play, game 4, I think, or something. And then Shepard had some like rigid, like I got to get him on because it's the funniest thing to me because like he had some miraculous pregame nap or something because all of a sudden his shoulder was good enough to play.
What an asshole.
Or maybe he got a case of, I don't want to. Well, I'm sure he wouldn't have lost his spot in the lineup by any stretch.
I know.
He was their best goal scorer, but you know what I mean. Like he just ended up showing up, and then I ended up kind of being relegated in just to a black ace, right? That was my closest of being there. But I went on every road trip. You mean we're on the plane? I was on the ice when they beat the Penguins in the Wales Conference Final, and like all that cool stuff. So I just saw how that state the state went crazy, right?
We went nuts. Crazy.
Yeah,
nuts. Everybody loved it, and that was the fuel that lit the fire of the growth of the game down there. And so after that happened, like again, this is going to sound ridiculous, but this is what happened. So I'm playing for Team Florida, the high level select team. We go to Michigan to play in a tournament, and our good friend who played for the Blades, his name's Don Stone, grew up in Michigan. And so as Team Florida does when they go to Michigan back then to play in a select festival, we lost very quickly and were relegated in short order. And so we were looking for a skate, just like an open skate. And so Don calls and he said, he goes, "Hey, there's a skate at Compuware in Plymouth. I don't know much about it, but you guys can go if you want." Okay. So I'm going to cut your story up just for a second. Yeah, go ahead.
So you're 12, you haven't stepped on the ice in your life. You played roller hockey, you enjoy the sport, this rink gets built, you're on the ice all the time. Is there any point here that you think that you're pretty damn good?
No, God, no.
No. So
no.
like you're,
I mean, yes, but again, like we're playing Florida hockey, right? So I was good for the Planet Ice Youth Midget B team.
Right. You were one of the better players on that team or the best player on that team.
Yeah. So a good friend of mine, Jeremy LaBianca, who I'm still friends with today, he's a couple years older than me. And so I was playing with him, and me and him were like the two, like I would set him up, he'd go score a goal kind of thing. And
because you were a defenseman, just for everybody to know.
I was a forward back then.
Oh, back then you were a forward.
Yeah. So I grew up as a forward. So me and him played together, but I mean, God, no. Okay. I mean, it was one of those things that like I enjoyed playing hockey. That was it. I didn't know anything else. Nothing. And as fate would have it, as a side note, no, this was after that. So we go to Michigan, and
you did Compuware skate. Okay, back to that.
Yeah, and so like we show up to an ice rink.
How old are you?
Again, 13, 14.
Oh, okay.
I mean, this all happened like that.
Yeah.
Like from playing in Florida to playing up there was obscenely fast.
Yeah. So
we show up at a skate. We go to the guys at the table. We go, "Hey, we're here for the skate. Is there hitting?" And mind you, this is a midget AAA pre-tryout skate, as I found out in the past. So two yokels from Florida are asking the coach, "Hey, is there hitting?" And they look at us and they go, "Yes, there's hitting." And we're like, "Oh shit." So me and my dad walk away and we talk about it. No joke. We're in the parking lot and we're like, "I don't know, man. These kids are big. Like we're up north. I don't know, should we do it?" So we go back and we go, "Hey, these guys are pretty good, right?" And the two guys are like, it's a AAA skate, midget AAA skate.
And it's Compuware too, which is a hell of a big program down there.
Exactly. Right? Which we literally had no clue what that meant.
Right. And
so me and my dad walk away again. And so right now it's getting like, we got there 30 minutes before, it's like 5 minutes before the skate. And so we get to a point where we're just like, well, I mean, shit, if you break a leg, if like one of these kids kill you, like we got insurance, it'll be fine. Okay, fine. So run downstairs, I put my gear on, go on the ice. It's like it's like that scene with Will Ferrell in what's it called? Old School, where he's like, "What happened? I blacked out." So I go on the ice, we skate. I come off the ice. I'm sitting in the locker room taking my gear off, and the coach walks in. He goes, "Is Noah Babin here?" And I'm like, "Uh-oh." Like I definitely did something wrong. And I go, "Yeah, that's me." He goes, "Where is your dad? Is your dad here?" I go, "Yeah, my dad." He goes, "Go get him." I'm like, "Oh." I thought like I had to have done something.
Yeah.
So go get my dad. He comes down. We're sitting there in the hallway, and essentially they're like, "Hey, we really like your son. Where are you from?" Because of the whole shebang beforehand, and they're kind of like, "What the hell's going on?"
Yeah.
And we tell them from Florida, we're here for a skate, which they're kind of like, "Okay," because like nobody's done this yet. I think we were the first people. And so, long story short, he asked us to join like a pre-tryout tournament kind of deal thing. So we said, yeah, sure, 100%. And up to this point in Florida, everybody was telling us like, hey, you're pretty good. Like, if you actually want to try to play hockey, you need to leave. And so we had gone and toured Avon Old Farms for high school my freshman year. No scholarship, no tryout. The hockey team didn't even know I was coming. So my parents had put down a deposit for me to go to Avon Old Farms. Fast forward, I get offered to go on this tryout and offered a place on the team. And so now me and my parents are sitting there trying to decide, like, okay, Avon Old Farms, Compuware, what do you do? And so we decided, well, it's 60 games at Compuware, 30 games at Avon Old Farms. Let's go to Compuware. Like, what the heck? So me and my mom hop in the car. We drive to Northville, Michigan. My dad stays home to pay the bills. Fortunately, that year, my sister was going to BU. I don't know how my parents paid for this. Not from an overly wealthy family. I mean, my mom was a teacher. My dad worked for the city, as we discussed. And it's one of those things that like you look back on, and as a kid, you don't realize what your parents are sacrificing for you.
Yeah.
But it was incredible. And so me and my mom moved to Michigan. We get an apartment, and we thought it was going to be a 1 year like fun thing, and everybody in Florida, there's a lot of blowback in Florida, kind of like, who the hell do you think you are? What do you think you're doing? And all that kind of stuff that typically comes with it. Fortunately, I was young enough that I was so naive, it didn't really affect me, but I know it affected my parents a little bit. And there was a lot of that in Michigan as well when I joined the team,
Yeah.
lot
Imagine that now with phones,
That's crazy.
right? Like, wouldn't that have been a completely different experience probably for you?
Completely different. Like, if I was on social media back then, I would have been absolutely crushed. Absolutely crushed. But yeah, I was fortunate enough that it didn't affect me.
Yeah.
And
Oh, wow.
so-
So you go up there. So you're Crater Stir in Florida. You're up in Michigan with all the hockey players, right? And
big time. Yeah.
and you're self-proclaimed about as green as they come at this point still, right?
Like, embarrassingly so. And I stayed embarrassingly green for so many years. I was honestly, after talking with you today, some of the memories start coming back. And as you develop in the game, right? Like, you look back and I just shake my head at some of the stuff I did. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, I was listening to, as we were talking about your interview with Gillies, with Trevor, and how he spoke about how he carried himself within the game as a youth player and as he advanced. I was like, man, I was like the furthest thing from that for so many years. Like, I didn't know that you hung out with your team. I didn't know that those were your friends. I didn't know that those were like your brothers. Like, I didn't know. And it was never instilled in me. My parents didn't play hockey.
Yeah.
Neither one of them were huge athletes. And so it's just one of those things that like I wasn't aware of this social construct of being a hockey player and being involved with the game. And so to
Interesting that
say,
you said for so long. Like, so I would think 1 year of like Compuware with all these guys that have been playing hockey, like, you would, whatever, that would be like drinking from a fire hose. But
yes. And
Yeah.
so I got a little bit more up to speed and a little bit more up to speed, but it was just, this will go back to kind of the mental side that I'm sure we're going to get into, but I just didn't have, I wasn't aware of what was going on around me. I wasn't able to integrate. I wasn't able to match the guys with their intensity and where they were at. I was just a little bit too naive and a little bit too aloof, I guess you'd say. Those are all things that I had to develop over the years. So
Was it
Yeah,
a
it was
maturity thing if you look back on it now? Like, were you not as mature potentially or not? It was just
probably.
environmental.
Yeah, I think 100% maturity. It was a matter of um, mental toughness, that grit, and I mean, you know, God bless my parents. Like I was a spoiled kid growing up. I mean, as we discussed, like my dad would take me to the rink all the time, and so I think there's a little bit of um, being a little bit spoiled and not realizing like I didn't realize the amount of effort it took. I didn't realize the amount of work that you had to put in. And like up until this point, I was just doing things because I enjoyed doing them. And I don't think, I mean, as hard as I was working in Florida, I don't think I was doing it to the level that those guys were,
Right.
if that makes sense. And so I had to bring everything up a notch.
Yeah. So how did that first season go? On the
Holy
ice, I
crap.
mean.
Yeah, it was a blur. I mean, on the ice is a complete blur. I don't even remember it, honestly. It just went by so fast and so quick. Like the only things that I remember, like things like I remember the kids on the team wanted to have a workout before practice.
Yeah.
And I was like, why would we work out before practice? We're going to be tired for practice. This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, why would you work out? This is stupid. And so like not even knowing that you needed to train, you know what I mean? Or like that the level of intensity that you needed to train at. That's how, like, it's just looking back on it, it's like, what are you doing?
Right.
But I just didn't know, you know what I mean? And so that's the only out that I can give myself.
Okay, short break from the conversation with Noah to give you a full-on shout-out. Like when this is coming out, this is like end of August. End of August, majority of programs are either just starting or, just ramping up. If you're in the States, it started a little earlier than Canada. You have a team. You are on a team. You are the parent of a player on a team. You are a player on a team. You are a coach potentially. You are a manager. You are maybe somebody involved in an association. Get on your email. Send an email to jason@upmyhockey.com and inquire about how your team can take the Peak Potential Hockey Project. It is a game changer for your season. It gives your players the tools to practice better, to work on their player identity, to understand what a peak performance culture looks like within a team, how to use language around emotional preparation and being able to pivot using your mental agility in the moment. There are so many advantages to do this program as a team. Not to mention it is significantly less investment than if you were going to do it on your own as an individual player. So coaches, this can help you help the team. This can help you help your players. Managers, same goes for you. This can give you a mental advantage. It can give you a competitive advantage. It gives your players a life advantage. It minimizes problems in the locker room. It helps people communicate better. There are so many advantages to doing this as a team. When I work with teams, it usually takes 8 weeks to complete the program. They will do 1 week at a time. Everyone logs in, does their own assignments on their own within the team, and then we get on a group call with me where we go over the material. We have mini breakout sessions on that call. We cover some new material, get players talking about stuff that they usually wouldn't talk about, and you can see a dramatic uptick. I had one coach tell me that the program itself was well worth all of their practices for the time that they used it, meaning that it was more valuable to his players. And then when they were practicing, that the value that they got from the practices had increased. They were getting better results in games. There's a ton of advantage to doing this. So this is the time of year. I am usually very busy in the fall, and that looks like it's going to be the case again. But I do have some spots open to work with some teams. So if this is one thing that you think you should add to your program, whether you're an academy, an association, or whether you're just a general manager of a team or a coach or a parent that wants to put a bug in the ear of your coach or manager, by all means, reach out. Jason@upmyhockey.com and ask about the Peak Potential Project for teams, and I would be happy to get on a call and discuss how it might work for you guys. I can't say enough about it. The people, the teams that have done it are all very, very happy that they took the program, and many return, especially the coaches, return with their new teams and want to do it again the next year. It's kind of one of their non-negotiables. So yeah, plug in mindset into your program. I know the skills development is hard enough to do. The practice plans are hard enough to do. Preparing for the games is hard enough to do. For coaches to be able to also handle some type of mental fitness training can become really overwhelming. Why don't you go to a proven program that's been there, done that, and has had immense amounts of success, and take that off your hands and give your players the gift of mental toughness. Now back to the episode with Noah Babin. I mean, not that I want to spend an entire hour on it, although I think we could. But like, how do you get to the U17 national teams? Like, you're 14 years old now in Compuware, and you're like, you don't even remember the season. Like, you're having a hard time adjusting to the culture and everything else. So, yet in 2 years, like, you're one of the best players the USA Hockey says they have to offer.
I didn't I didn't pay you for this, but this is a great interlude. So during this time period, I grew up. My mom's Jewish, my dad's Russian Orthodox. So I get invited to my cousin's bat mitzvah in Toronto because we have family in Toronto. So we go up to Toronto. And again, this goes back to like how absurd my story is. So I'm going up to Toronto for a bat mitzvah strictly because I need to go to Canada, and it's the birthplace of hockey. Like, I'll never forget getting to Canada and getting off the plane and looking around and just being like, everybody here's good. Everybody here has got to be a good hockey player. Like the guy who's checking my ticket at the bags, like, this guy's definitely good at hockey. Like, that lady over there, I bet she played. Like, I was out of my mind. And so this is like around the same time, 13, 14, because that was my cousin's age. And so this is right before the year I left for Compuware. So my uncle, they know I want to skate. So I go to Toronto. They go to the closest ice rink. They get the first brochure they see. They call the guy and they go, hey, do you guys do lessons or something? And the guy goes, yeah, we have lessons. And so, great, my cousin's coming up. Can you get on the ice? Sure, great. So we set up a lesson. I don't know who this is. So I go out. I have a lesson. It's really hard. Talk about not knowing things. Before the lesson, we went out and I found Tim Hortons for the first time. That's dangerous. And I had, I don't know how many chocolate chip muffins before that skate, because those things are like crack. And so I'm on the ice. I'm not feeling very good, but pushing through it. And this guy comes up. I don't know who he is. He's an Eastern European guy. And he goes, you're Noah? I go, yeah. And he goes, you look pretty good. He goes, a lot of boys come to me and they want to skate. And their parents come and they say, make my son better. And I go, okay, I'll do what I can. But some of those boys, they just aren't very good. And so I can't do that much with them. And sometimes I can. You know what I mean? And so some kids come, they work hard, but they just don't have that much. Other boys, they come, they're good, and they can get better. I think you might be one. So you should come and skate more. And walks away. Something like that. And I'm just kind of sitting there going like, who is that guy? Like, what? And so we have another lesson the next day. And he goes, hey, we have a summer camp. You should come. Okay. So the next summer I go back, I go for a week. And so the camp, I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Skate On. It's in Toronto. So my first year there, I go up. This is the year it might have been the year before Compuware or the year immediately after. I can't remember. We go with my mom. It was great. I go for a week. The following year, I wind up billeting. My billet is Jason Spezza and his brother. So I spent a week with Jason Spezza. And again, talking about, so this is before I went to, I can't remember the time. It was either before Compuware or after the year at Compuware. So I'll never forget hopping in the car with Jay's dad. And he's like, hey, do you want to come watch a game of Jay? Sure, So I go to one of the youth games and we walk in the rink and I'm like, why are all these people here? Like, this is a youth game. Like, there's standing room only. And his dad was like, yeah, it's because Jay's like a very highly touted guy. And so the point of the story is I fell in with a guy named Yari Bursky at a camp called Skate On in Toronto, who wound up producing, like, while I was there, I went to school. Every summer I'd go back for like 2 to 4 weeks. So I'd go to school with Jason Spezza, Brett Burns, Manny Malhotra, Alexei Ponikarovsky, Daniel Kachuk, who else? I think Connor McDavid wound up going through there. I don't know, a bunch of other guys. And so Yari was like some kind, like his skill development, I think, was probably the most cutting edge thing going on at that point, from what I could tell. And I just happened to have fell into it. And so, how did I get all these opportunities? Looking back in hindsight, I was obscenely skilled, and so I was one of those kids, I think, who they jump on the ice and you just go, "Oh, there's a duck. He found his water." And because of that, and because of my skating ability, and because of the skills that Yari instilled in me, et cetera, I had a base level of skating ability and talent that I think every coach saw and went, okay, yeah, that guy can keep up. Like, he can play for sure, and he can develop. And they were right. Like, every year I did improve and I did get better because my skills were so high, and like I wanted to learn. I don't think I knew how to learn yet, but somewhere I was figuring out enough to advance. And so enter back to Compuware, end of the year. There's a man named Chris Corey who coaches at Little Caesars. He's still coaching. I think he's at Compuware actually now, and I'm going to see him in a month. He's in San Diego, taking a little vacation, and we're going to get together. But he coached Little Caesars at that time. And so I am leaving Compuware. We think that's the end, of the road, most likely, because it was just a 1-year thing. End up at a couple skates with Chris, and really liked him. He started recruiting me. He really wanted me on his team. I absolutely loved him. He was one of my favorite coaches I've ever had. He was like an old time hockey guy. He was skills, passing, skating, shooting. He played everyone. If you're on Chris's team, you're playing, and you're playing in every situation, period, full stop. Yeah. And he kind of helped me take the next level in the game. And more importantly, he's responsible for turning me into a defenseman, because I was so bad at producing points. He was like, we got to do something with him because he's not scoring at all. So Chris threw me back on D. And again, it was one of those things where when I got back there, I kind of went, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I was able to skate with the puck. I was able to dish pucks to other guys. I was able to jump up and support the play. All of a sudden, like a little piece went ka-chink. Okay, this makes sense now. And so like all along the journey, there were just little puzzle pieces that went in exactly when they needed to go in. It was crazy. And that was one of those big ones. So that was a very fun year as well.
And who were you playing for then? That was Little Caesars?
That was Little Caesars, yeah. And we got to play in Joe Louis Arena, which was also amazing. So we were there an awful lot, and we got to know some of the Red Wings guys, some of the guys on the staff there. They were phenomenal. It was one of those experiences that you'll never forget. Like if the guys were having a morning skate, like Draper would stop by, or Steve Eiserman would say hi, or Scotty Bowman would come say hi. And like at that age, like even I knew who those guys were. And I got, you get sucked up in the Red Wings thing. And I'll never forget, one of my favorite players was Sergei Fedorov. And it was one of those days where the locker room door was open because it was, they were having morning skate either before or after we were on the ice. And so I kind of like quietly snuck over, left the locker room, sneak over to the Red Wings room. And I'll never forget, I get in the locker room, nobody's there. I'm looking around, nobody's there. So I walk over to stick rack, and my finger is this close to grabbing one of Sergei's sticks to be able to touch it, because I figured if I touched it, that would make me better, So I'm like, and I hear, hey, what? And it was a Zamboni guy. He's like, Babs, what are you doing in here? Get out of here. I was like, sorry. I was like, I wasn't going to take anything, I swear. And so ran away as fast as I could. So it was a lot of fun playing there. And, but so that whole season we're playing, and the guys in the locker room are starting to give me shit. They're like, Babs, you only play well in the USA programs here. I'm like, yeah. And they give me shit like, you're only playing well in the NTDPs here. And I'm like, yeah, totally. And I don't know who that is. And so, and again, this goes back to me being just kind of aloof, and I just didn't worry about stuff like that. I just was there to play hockey and have fun. And again, I had no expectations and no pressure to advance or play at a high level, which probably worked to my benefit. So why would I even look at the next level if I was I'm probably not going to be there anyway. And so fast forward to the end of the year, I get a call. I can't remember who it was that called me, but somebody from the program, because I know Jeff Jackson, who eventually was my coach at Notre Dame, was the head of the NTDP program, and Bob Mancini was doing the 17 team. And it was either Bob or Jeff or somebody involved with the program called me and said, "Hey, we got a ton of injuries. Can you come fill in and practice?" And so our season at Little Caesars was over, and sure. So I go, I skate with these guys, and they're really good. Like, I have never been on the ice with guys that are this good, but like I'm able to keep up and I'm not out of place. And that was the first time that I kind of went, oh, okay, like maybe I'm okay at this. And fast forward, we get to tryouts, and my good friend Mark Stewart, who spent time in the NHL, like he was he's with Vancouver now, I think. I don't even want to admit this. He said he'll never forget sitting in the locker room, and this kid walks in with like hemp necklaces and a puka shell necklace, just like a surfer looking hippie dude. And he just looked at me. He said he looked at me. It's just like, the fuck is that? And I mean, it just I just shake my head and like I gotta take it and own it, And I laugh because we ended up, so fast forward, I'm on the team. I get offered a spot to play for the NTTP team. And I'll never forget getting the phone call. I was in my backyard. We set up a little shooting thing, and I got a call. "Hey, Noah, we'd like you to come play for the NTDP team." And I'm like, 100%. That sounds amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. And so then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, what is this? Then I look into it, because now it's real, right? Because like all the other times it was you're flirting with it, but now I've actually made the team. What is this? All of a sudden I realized, holy shit. Like, if I do a good job here, like if I don't suck, I'm getting a Division I scholarship. Like, this is insane. And so I'm out of my mind happy. Like, I can't explain how happy I am. And so that whole thing happens. We go there. I play with, I'm on the team with Zach Parisi, Ryan Suter, Kessler, Jimmy Howard, Mark Stewart, Matt Carl, Pat Eves, Mike Eves was our head coach. I mean, they became franchise guys all over the league. And they were the guys I hung out with, on a daily basis. So like, you can't help but get better.
So that U17 team, you're 16 years old. Or 17. You're 16 or 17 at U17?
16 turning 17.
Yeah, 16 turning 17. So it's your 16-year-old year. And you're essentially deemed by USA Hockey as one of the top 6 defensemen of that age in the country.
Yep.
Right.
Figure that out.
And you're still you're not aware of what that program is or anything about it.
It's as embarrassing as it is.
And so crazily absurd. Like, what did you do in your spare time?
I would train hockey, and I would work on hockey as much as I knew how to. And again, I say the words "as much as I knew how to" for a reason, because I did want to get better and I did want to improve. I didn't know what to do. Like, I'll never forget trying to find a workout program when I was a kid. So I asked my idol, Spike. I asked Spike, what do I do? Well, how do I work out? We ended up in the back by the Zamboni room, jumping rope and doing push-ups and a couple plyometrics. And so the knowledge just wasn't there. And so it's one of those things that growing up, I didn't know, because like you couldn't just look it up on the internet at that point. I didn't have friends to ask. And so what did I do in my spare time? I was skateboarding, probably playing video games, dorking around with friends. Like, I would go back to Florida and like I would skate and train as much as I knew how, but then it would be hanging out with my friends at the beach or going to the pool, just being a kid, kind of.
You didn't, I guess, because I'm just trying to relate in the sense that, I played on the U18 Canadian team, right? So that was just 1 year after. So so we had just finished our 16-year-old year in the WHL.
Yep.
Even at that point, right? Like 16-year-olds in WHL for any Canadian kid, like I knew I wanted to be a hockey player. I knew when the draft was, I knew where the best players were coming from, like I knew, you know, and then to listen to you and say like that you didn't know, it's just like that
It's
is such
embarrassing.
a far, like I'm trying to even imagine how that's possible.
And it's a construct of not. I mean, again, it was 1 year. We were going to go up and play for 1 year, and then the
Right.
next year was like, oh great, we got another year. And so it was just like a fun adventure that we were going on, right? It was never a thing that we were really gonna. It was never really going to be a thing. You know what I mean?
Right. So you weren't like, you didn't think like there wasn't dreams going to bed at night that you're playing the NHL. Like
You
that
want
wasn't what
to,
you.
you want to, but that's like such a far fetched thing. It's like,
Right.
come on, there's no way. You know, like you want it, but at the same time, you just like you still understand that that's obscene to say
Right.
that.
So now you're with the best 6 defenseman in the country at 16 years old, and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to get a D1 scholarship,
Now we're
and
cranking.
that now like has turned into a reality that you think is possible.
Yes. So now we're cranking. So now once you get there, you can't not get better. So we start
Well, and
learning.
now you're a part of that whole like now they're showing you how to work, and now they're
Yep.
showing you what's available.
I'm in the machine. And so
Yeah.
now I'm learning how to lift. I'm learning how to train. I'm learning what hard work is. And I loved it. I loved every second of that program. We woke up at the crack of dawn and I went to school with all my best friends. We went to the rink, we trained, we're flying around on weekends, playing this game, that game, whatever game. I was having so much fun. I almost like forgot what the whole point was. I was just so happy to be. I was like involved. It was the first time I was involved. I was like a part of the game, if that makes sense. Like I always felt kind of like an outsider, and now I was actually a part of the game. You know what I mean? Like I was there. I was with these guys. They were the top of the pyramid, and here I'm with them now. Like this is the best. And so I was like, the guys laugh about it. Like I was one of the happiest people you could ever meet. Like we woke up. Like I'll never forget. We got home from a road trip at like 4 a.m. It's snowing. There's like 4 inches of snow. Everybody's tired. Blah blah blah. And we're unpacking the bus, and I was just like, "This is awesome. This is the best. I love it." And so that year we wind up winning. This is even crazier. So we're playing in Nova Scotia for the World Under-17 Championship. Now, again, I'm at this level. I'm playing with these guys. I'm not exactly the first line defensive pair. So I'm there, but like we know Noah's role isn't like the top line D. And so I'm on the ice here and there, spotty. We're in the U17 championship. I go on the ice. I think it was, Pat's a lefty. I think it was Pat O'Sullivan. He won a face-off, draws the puck back to me. I flub a shot in. It goes in. It puts us up 3-2 over, because Canada and the U17, I think, fielded like 4 teams. So we wind up winning this game, and that goal winds up being the goal that wins the tournament for the USA. And so we wind up, and so now all of a sudden after the game, I'll never forget this. A guy comes in, or our equipment manager comes in, Jose. He goes, "Babs, I need your stick." And I'm like, "No, I don't want to give you my stick." And he's like, "I need your stick right now." I'm like, "Why?" It's because it's going to the Hall of Fame. It's like, what? Look, we're here. Take my stick. And so because they scored the first game-winning goal in USA hockey history since the 1980 Olympic team won, my stick and the puck that I scored with wound up getting featured in the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto. And I'll never forget, Pat Eves looked at me, because Pat was like an integral part of that team. I mean, he played a bajillion minutes. And in the locker room, he just went like, "Oh my God." Like looked at me like, "Are you kidding me?" And I was just like, "Sorry." You know, like, I don't know. And so fast forward to that, me and my mom, obviously, we got to go see it. So the season ends, we win our thing. You know, like during the time when the season ends, we got to drive back to Florida. So my mom flies up. We drive from Detroit to Toronto. We get to the Hall of Fame right before closing time. And so we get in, and we're like, "Mom, where's my stick?" "It's over there." "Oh, that's my stick right there." We were those people. And because they're just like you can't make that up. Like, this is insane. And so we're having a ball. We got the pictures to do the thing, and you leave, you come home. So fast forward, we go to our 18 year. Our 18 year, again, we wind up winning a world championship. We're playing against Crosby, Ovechkin, Malkin. It was insane. So we're in Siberia in Russia for the World Under 18 Championship, and I'll never forget like the end of the game. We had to win by like 2 points or something really weird. Mikey's, who's the coach, calls us in and he goes, "Hey, do you guys want to pull the goalie to get another goal to win the game?" And we're like, "Yeah." And so, mind you, I'm basically the grocery stick on this team. Mike was nice enough to give me a couple shifts so the good players could have a break. And Ryan Suter winds up wheeling the puck behind the net. He beats Ovechkin up the ice, ditches it off to Parisi. I think it was. We score another goal. We win a World Under 18 Championship. So here I am, 3 years before. I'm like, I don't think anything's going to happen. So we won a World Under 17 Championship. My stick went in the Hockey Hall of Fame. I'm playing with all these guys who are like hockey royalty, and now we just won a World Under 18 Championship. And mind you, along the way, I wind up committing to the University of Notre Dame for a hockey scholarship. So like, I'm on cloud nine. I mean, what could be better?
How is the and how does that process work from U17 going to U18? Like it's a whole nother tryout, is it not? Or
No, they just we just move right up pretty much.
Really?
Yeah, it's the same group stays together, and it's really an unfair advantage for the USA, if I'm being frank. Probably get yelled at by Ken Martell for saying that. But like you keep those guys together and they play together for those 2 years. I mean, they wind up becoming, and they all live in Plymouth now. Everybody lives close together. You're spending every day together in high school. You get to know each other. Yeah. The bonds that I have from that team. I mean, my godsons are the goalie of that team. They live just down the road from us. Another one of my buddies lives in San Diego. He was there as well. And you know, they're guys that you have a lifelong relationship with. They're guys, you know how it is. And we only played 2 years together, but they're guys that you can call at any time and say what's up and talk to them.
Well, think about how formative those years are, though. Really, right?
Crazy.
Like they're the most memorable years of your life. Really, you know.
It was unbelievable, and to have it, and that's why I say, like, for me to be involved and have it be that is like, come on.
Yeah.
So that is what I would call the end of the fairy tale, for me anyway. Because the year after that, I had to burn a year before I went to Notre Dame, and this is when reality set in.
Yeah, I want to talk about Green Bay, because Green Bay, I know where you're going, right? But there seems to be like a correlation for sure throughout that you're just like this wide-eyed kid in a candy store, essentially, who's, you know, a good player, but more or less along for the ride, and just
100%.
Like you said happy, right? Like
so
the word I use a lot. It's actually in the first week of the program that I do is there's like a complete few lessons on gratitude, and like how I believe it's like, me and others believe that it's a skill, and cultivated
100%.
properly, it's like a performance enhancing advantage. Not only does it secret sauce make you a better human being to boot, right? Was that something that you felt like was endearing to you, came naturally? Like, I'm sure you weren't thinking of cultivating gratitude. You were just probably, well, I don't even know if you were grateful, because you might have just been happy, right? Like, I don't know. It wasn't was it gratitude?
I didn't even have that terminology yet.
Right.
Didn't even know what it was. I was just so happy to be there. I had no expectations. I had nothing until that USA year. So I get there, and then all of a sudden, like I was saying, like, now you're somebody. Now you're somebody. You've done something. Now you're good. And then comes the expectations and, you know, the need to perform.
How was that when you went back to Florida after you made the NTDP team?
I didn't get me any girls, that's for sure, because nobody knew what that was back in Florida.
Just like you, right? You left there not knowing what it was, and no one knew.
Yeah, exactly. Like my friends, you know, everybody was like, "Yeah, that's great that you're doing that." You know, I'd come back for the summer and see my buddies, and you know, nobody really cared. They were just like, "Yeah, Noah's playing hockey. He's, you know, whatever."
So what about, Green Bay? Because I know that was a big bump in the road. I mean, I just know because I read this little bio, and it sounds like there was definitely something went down there, and that was where a test I'm sure was showing to you. So yeah, let's get into that. What was that all about?
And so this goes into like the puzzle pieces coming in at the right point in time, and I got to give the guy credit. The coach that I had there, his name was Marco Siki. He was a tough guy, tough coach. No BS. He just called it what it was. And I wasn't ready for that at all. Mentally, like my parents, I love them. God bless them. I had the parents, no joke. My dad, we had conversations. He'd be like, no, it looks really good when you carry the puck. Maybe you should carry the puck more. Like, I think you should carry the puck more and pass a little less. Okay. And then I wasn't playing a lot, and mom would be like, I think the coach doesn't like you. There's something about the coach that he doesn't like you. Those were my parents. So like the thing that you tell parents not to tell your kids, that because they didn't know. They were just trying to protect their baby boy. And so get to Green Bay, Mark Osiki, here I am, as we've said. I've now won 2 world championships. I play with the US national team. I'm supposed to be this guy. Me and my friend Matt Carl, who his career took a slightly different turn than mine, ends up at the Lancers, and I ended up in Green Bay. And so my goal was that I would be, because Matt was one of the guys on the 18 team. So my goal that year was I wanted to come in and prove that I was as good as Matt. That was my goal. And so I come in, and Mark demanded a lot of me. He called me out, and like, I just wasn't ready for it. Mentally, I wasn't ready for it. Spiritually, I wasn't ready for it. And I didn't know how to deal with it. And so here I am. I'm 19. I'm in Green Bay. It culminated. I'll never forget. It was like one of those talks, right? Like I'm not playing well. I'm not producing, and now that I understand his perspective, he had this kid that he protected in the draft, that he brought in, he had high hopes for, and I just shit the bed. And so he calls me into his office, and he basically says, Noah, like, we did all this stuff for you. It's not working out. Like, I don't think you should be here. I don't think Notre Dame wants you. I don't know why you're here. I think you should just go back to Florida and quit. And I was so depressed and so low and so beat up. I mean, I had the deepest, darkest, dirtiest thoughts that anybody can have. And I was alone in a basement in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and it was cold. And it was every marker of a deep, dark depression you have. Didn't want to wake up in the morning, didn't want to open my eyes, didn't want to go to the rink, didn't want to live another day. I didn't want to deal with anything. And so, it's as dark as you can get. And that was one of those years that was really formative for me as a hockey player, because had he not done that, and had I not hit that low, and you can't go lower than that without going through the ground. And because of him, I hit that low. And fortunately, as one of the benefits of being an athlete, seasons end, right? And I left Green Bay, Wisconsin at a bajillion miles an hour. And I was so happy to get out of there. And when that season ended, I didn't know, again, what to do. I just knew I needed to do something. And so if you remember, there was a guy that I mentioned earlier that I grew up looking up to. His name was Martin Malley. And Martin was a member of the Czech national team. And he wound up playing for the Blaze. And I knew that he had some old school Eastern Czech Soviet era workouts in the back of his brain somewhere. And so I called Martin, and he was getting a camp going. And because of the time that I'd spent at Skate On, I understood how to run a camp and how to lead kids on the ice and how to show skills, et cetera, et cetera. He needed help with that, and I needed help building myself up again. So he wrote me a workout program. And this workout program, this is going to sound like I'm making this up. It was 2 to 3 hours in the morning. I would take a break for maybe 2-3 hours. It was a middle of the day. I started at 50 squats, building up to 400 squats in a row, and then another break, and then another workout. So it was three workouts each day. Not easy workouts, like very, very, very challenging, running, plyometrics, jumping, everything. And I literally beat myself back to self-worth. And so I worked my ass off that summer, harder than I've ever worked. And because I didn't know anything about the mental side of the game. And now looking back on it, I realized that like through that amount of work, I just earned my self-respect back and my self-dignity back, because I had none. Like, I hated looking at myself in the mirror. I hated who I was, and I was embarrassed and frustrated and upset. and everything because that you're in Green Bay.
Can we go back there?
Yeah,
a little
for
bit?
sure. Yeah, please.
So, I mean, obviously that was heavy. You know, I can just even tell the way your voice was, and some of the words that you used. Like, I don't want to get into the whole mental health aspect, but I mean,
Yeah,
suicidal. It sounded like you were suicidal. Thought about
100%.
doing it. Yeah. So you
Yeah.
got to that spot. What allowed you, other than leaving, because you did get through the season? Was there anything other
hmm
than the season ending like that allowed you to push off the bottom a little bit?
I got to the edge of that cliff, um, so to speak, and I realized that like I could just go back to Florida and this could all be done. I could just go home. And then this whole little bubble of a world that I entered and was so excited to be a part of when I got to USA, I don't have to be a part of this. I can just walk away from it and I can go home. I have friends there who couldn't care less about hockey. I have a life there of people who have no interest in hockey.
Right.
And all my friends were phenomenal in Florida. And so I can just walk away if I want. And that made me kind of recognize that, like, okay, this sucks right now, but it's going to be over. And you're going to be able to get this season through and it's going to be done. And more importantly, I was so low, and I've worked with other kids now that got older since I've become a coach, that they asked for a trade, or they asked to leave the team, or they asked to move to a different organization. I was so low that I didn't even want to do that, just because I figured if I went to another organization, I just have to start again and I'd just disappoint them. You know what I mean? Like that kind of mindset. And so the only thing that really got me through was understanding that this will end. There is an end point. This will end, and this season will come to a finish. And so I struggled through that year mentally, did what I could to get by. You know what I mean? Like not really proud of the person I was for my teammates, looking back in hindsight, or who I was around them. And a lot of those guys, I don't know what they think of me. Probably not the best. Understandably so, because they didn't know what I was going through, and I didn't know how to express what I was going through.
Right. Which is interesting because, like, so now as far as two coaches now talking, right? Like, I'm sure the coach that you had at that time, it wasn't his wish to push you to
No,
the edge of suicide.
no.
Probably just didn't know. He probably just didn't know what he didn't know.
He did,
For lack of a
and
better term, like, what would you have done in that scenario? Like, what do you think that did Noah Babin need? Noah Babin need at that time?
he needed what Dave Poulin eventually provided. But the question is, Dave, as I'm sure we'll get to, as me and you discussed, he sat me down after my freshman year at Notre Dame and he said, Noah, you don't have a head game. To which in my mind, the only thought I had was like, what is a head game? I've never heard these words and I don't know what that is. And mind you, like I had been exposed to sports psychology before, et cetera, but without Mark getting on me like he did in Green Bay, maybe I wouldn't have been ready to hear that message. And
Right.
One of the things that I've learned now as a coach, it's our job as coaches and mentors, not just to share knowledge, it's to sell the players and the kids on the knowledge that you're providing them. And so it's not enough to say, hey, you need to work out. You have to show them why they need to work out, what they're doing to work out, and what that's going to provide to them to get that buy-in from them so that they take the steps necessary to make the change to be the best version of themselves. And so for me as a coach now, it's 50% the kid's responsibility, but also my responsibility because I'm the adult. I've been through it before, and I got to find the right chink in the armor to get in their brain to show them like, hey man, I know that you think this is the right way, but let's make a phone call, to my friend who's coaching at the Chicago Steel right now in the USHL, so he can tell you why that's not the correct decision and this is the correct decision, et cetera, something to get into their minds.
Right.
Um,
And so what would have got into your mind? Because I mean, it sounds like I had a similar experience in junior hockey, like with a coach that was, I mean, old school and definitely let I guess
yeah,
would be the right way to put it. but there wasn't necessarily a playbook for how to execute, you know?
Mhm.
So I'm not sure if I'm doing that justice or not, but you know, like for you, maybe I'm hearing like he's telling you that you're worthless or you're not the player that you're supposed to be, and this, that, and the other. But was he helping you at all with the player you could be or how to become that player?
You know, he probably was. Those thoughts and the things that he expressed to me obviously didn't have the emotional weight to create the impact for the memories at that time. And that's another part of it, as you're very well aware that emotion creates impact. And I don't know that he did, and I don't know that he had the knowledge at the time to do so.
Right.
But I know what I needed to hear, and what I needed to hear was, "Hey, you don't have a head game." And all these coaches who have been telling you, and parents, and teammates, and other people, you don't have confidence. You're not intense enough. You need to be more aggressive. You need to be more competitive. You name it.
Yeah.
Nobody said, here's how you do that. Nobody said you need more confidence. Here's how you get more confidence, Noah. It's right here. Follow these steps, and then on the back end, you'll have confidence. Hey, you don't know how to focus? Cool. Do these things, and then on the back end of that, you'll be able to focus. Nobody did that. It was just, you need to be better at X, Y, and Z, and go figure out how to do it.
Yeah,
Which,
yeah. And not even to even go figure it out. Just focus.
yeah,
Right.
which as I get older now, I'm like looking at it. That's absurd. That's like throwing a book at your 5-year-old and be like, read it.
Yeah.
Why can't you read that book? It's absurd. And that's what,
Yeah.
like, I'm really happy that hockey's evolving to the point where guys like yourself and other coaches are really, we've been through those experiences, right? And we're almost like version 2.0 or
Mhm.
3.0, whatever it is. And we keep evolving to make a better and better younger athlete and player as we move on.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I don't know. Okay, to me, you like the fact, and I mean this with no disrespect at
No,
all,
far
but I've
away.
had the conversation with people like that the ecosystem, the environment, at least when I came through, right in the 90s,
Mm-hmm.
it got rid of players that you're describing yourself as being like really
100%.
quickly. Because
Yep.
it was almost designed that way. I mean, like
Yeah.
coaches almost did it, I think, with intention to get rid of those who didn't really either know how or didn't or couldn't do it. And that's where this whole idea of mental
100%.
toughness, you have it or you don't, kind of existed, right? And it was never
Yep.
considered a skill.
Which is
Um,
absurd.
right. And I think it completely is a skill. And I think it can be taught.
100%.
And I think if you're willing to learn it, I mean, you can execute on it, right? And yes,
Yeah.
I do believe there is an inheritable ability that some maybe have higher penchant for than others, but that doesn't mean you can't get it at some point,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the
Absolutely.
fact that you made it through that season, like, you know, doing that and then like continued on, like I think that you're like one of the few kind of to do that and then to, you know, to be given the gift of the information and then to apply it as well, which I know we haven't got to yet, but
Mm-hmm.
um I find that really compelling, to be honest. And then the other reason why I think maybe what you do now, and I mean, you're an advocate for mindset and mental development and personal development,
Mm-hmm.
as am I, is I just think that there's such a wider net of players that need it now because
Huge.
the game is allowing, I think, more of those players in, right? Like
100%.
it's not as barbaric as it used to be. This
Mm-hmm.
the ecosystem's different, the culture in the locker room's different. So it's a more diverse group, it's a more diverse mindset group. It's a wider arc when it comes to societal upbringing. And yeah, so I just think that there's a lot of things within that dynamics of that locker room that people haven't been exposed to. And I think that we can really be helpful. So did you first of all, I
Unquestionably.
guess that was a little bit of a sidetrack, but
Agree.
do you agree with what I just said there? Do you think that there is more players that would probably need to raise their hand at this point?
Unquestionably. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable to the point where I was talking to a kid 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it was 2 or 3 weeks ago now. He was playing in the BCHL. He had an okay year, I think, and he came back. And I asked him. I said, you know, like, what are you doing to improve this year? And so he kind of went through some stuff. And I go, okay, how you know, you go through the checklist. How's your confidence? How are you preparing for games? And I was kind of showing him some new skills on the ice. And I said, okay, how are you going to start integrating that as fast as humanly possible? And he was like, well, I'll probably come out tomorrow and work on it. I'm like, what about visualizing it tonight, like a couple thousand times? And he goes, what? You know, like, what do you mean? And I go, well, you can visualize it like a couple thousand times and get a couple thousand reps so that tomorrow when you come back, you can actually have done it a couple thousand times exactly perfect in your mind and have your body start wiring those skills and have your muscles firing. And you can already be training so that you can be better than that other guy who didn't do those 1,000 reps. But you don't have to. It's not, it's not a big deal. It's up to you. The choice is yours. But you could get better if you want. I'm just saying. And so like kind of trying to bait them in. And then the conversation becomes like, what's visualization? And that gets back to the reason why I spent 4 or 5 years formatting that book. So now I can just be like, here's a book, read it. It's going to take you maybe 30 minutes. Now we can have a conversation. Okay, you went through that chapter. You understand how to visualize now. Great. What are we going to visualize? How are you going to visualize it? No, that's not good enough. You got to get deeper and you got to get into a deeper state of reality and you got to make it real for yourself to then express that in, your imaginary world to improve kind of thing.
Yeah,
so it's been,
I love it. I love all
it's been
that.
fun.
Take another short break from the episode with Noah 2. Thank you for listening as usual. I always try to throw in a break where I'm grateful, and I am grateful for you, for everyone here, everyone listening, everyone who is asking when the next episode comes out. I believe I have found a pretty good cycle here on the every 2-week release. I know that's not the favorite for some of my more ardent listeners who appreciate a podcast every week. But as I've said before, it is a lot of work and it can be draining at times. And that's what I don't want this to be for me. I want this to be something that I am totally looking forward to and something that I'm excited about. And this 2-week frequency seems to be working quite well. So yes, that will be where we're continuing for the near future. We'll see. I mean, part of being my own producer of my show is that I can do what I want with it, and I have the flexibility to do so. So if I feel like pumping out some more and getting into a weekly release, I will. But until then, we'll stick with this bi-weekly and keep the energy up and keep this rolling for you guys. Again, as far as how you can help, if you're just I shouldn't say but if you are a podcast listener and that's how you associate with Up My Hockey, you can definitely help by saying to your buddies, either on social or the louder the better, that, hey, this is something that you need to check out. It's amazing how much influence social media has, whether you have 100 followers or whether you have 1,000 friends on social media. A few shout-outs here and there. Hey, I just came across this podcast. If you're into hockey, check it out. Up My Hockey is something that I think you'll find value in. It's amazing. 1, 2, or 3 people listen, try it out. Now all of a sudden, there's a greater database for Up My Hockey. There's greater reach. There's greater influence. So that's how you can do your part. You can also do it with a review on the platform that you listen to of your choice. And you can obviously also become more of a part of the Up My Hockey network, which means there's a parent group on Facebook. If you haven't heard of that, it's called the Up My Hockey Parent Group. How original, on Facebook. So you can request it as a private group. There is no spam in there. No one's trying to whatever, sell you t-shirts or toothbrushes or doormats or anything. It's just all about hockey. It's about questions and answers. It's about how to get the most from the game. It's a support community from all across North America, and it's been growing. It's growing every day, and it's amazing. And it's an awesome spot to park. If you want to use your time actually wisely on social media and get some value out of a page, Up My Hockey Parent Group would be great. You can learn a little bit more about mindset training and how that can support your athlete as well. And the YouTube channel has been growing too. I'm releasing the podcasts on there. I'm also releasing highlight clips on there. Sometimes I put a lessons from the pro up there. That is with some of my training videos for free. So that's a pretty good resource there too. And the subscribership's growing there. So if you want to press subscribe on a YouTube video, that's an awesome way to support Up My Hockey and what we're doing here too. So that's about it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being around. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for helping Up My Hockey be what it is and inspiring me to continue having these conversations. Like the one I'm having with Noah today, which definitely has left me in a better spot, and hopefully you guys are enjoying it too. Let's get back to that conversation with Noah right now. So you meet Dave Poulin. He recognizes in you that there's this is an element missing. I mean, you described yourself, and you're obviously a super humble guy, as being a high skilled guy though. So I mean, you obviously got in the door on this level of talent and maybe weren't quite utilizing it to the level that you could be. You never talked about the draft, so you did get passed over in the draft. You never got drafted in the NHL draft.
So me and a friend of mine, Mike Gretzky, were on the phone because, as you can imagine, all of our friends from the NTDP program are going very high, and so me and Mike are on the phone, and I think he was the last pick of the draft that year because he was like 6'3" or 6'4". I didn't get drafted, and so I didn't really care. You know what I mean? Like, I had so far overshot my coverage. Okay, whatever.
Right. So it wasn't disappointing. It happened.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you knew that your peer group was getting drafted. This was a thing, but it wasn't like emotionally damaging for you or anyway. So you're now like, so at this stage and you've had this horrible experience at Green Bay, you know, didn't like the coach. Sounds like you weren't performing maybe well in the league even, you know, and so now you're in Notre Dame and you're not really thinking NHL probably at this point. You're just trying to figure out how to play. Really? Is that what you're doing? Trying to play in that league, trying to get a regular shift?
Yeah. So trying to make the team, trying to play a little bit, but like most importantly, I'm at Notre Dame. There's a reason, like when I got the USA program and I kind of like, we had those mailboxes where you see like the college recruiting letters come in. And so as soon as somebody kind of said, yeah, you could pretty much go to any school you wanted, I kind of went, I'm Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Notre Dame. That's it, period. Like, if you're telling me that I can use hockey to get into the best schools in the country, that sounds like a great deal. And I'm going to take you up on that. So that was a big goal for me, is to get to one of those schools. I wound up at Notre Dame, thank God. It was one of the best experiences of my life. Great school, great program, great community. I mean, I can't say enough about it. And so end up there. Sorry, I kind of lost track of what I was talking about, but like, yeah, it was just.
Well, no, but I'm just trying to connect the hockey. Like, so I mean, the hockey piece, like that was, you were just grateful and happy, turned into something that wasn't happy. It wasn't a happy place at all, and you weren't playing very great. So now you're at Notre Dame, and now you're at Notre Dame, you're at the university, you're doing all the university things, and obviously academia seems like it was really important to you from you know, from whatever level you wanted to go to the best school. So are you more focused now on the books? Or are you actively trying to get in and like, is hockey a big deal to you at this stage? Yeah.
So both are really important. So trying to cut the lineup. I played most of the games my freshman year, not all of them. And sitting out is, I mean, as you're aware, like getting healthy scratch is just the most horrible feeling on the earth. And so I really wanted to make it in the lineup, really wanted to be a regular shift guy. So I worked hard, tried to improve. I did reasonably well. But at the same time, I mean, we studied our butts off. I worked dawn to dusk and loved it. And so freshman year, had some great players in that team. We wound up making it to like the round of 16, I think, in the NCAA tournament. Yeah. We do well. While we were there, Brett Lebda, Jan Stasny, Neil Komodowski, and Aaron Gill, I think all of them wound up signing NHL contracts. Brett Lebda wound up winning a Stanley Cup with Detroit. So it was a great team to be involved with. But then really when things changed for me, I mean, really, really changed, was that summer when Dave handed me those books and I learned how to start controlling my brain. And the second I read those books, it was like a light went off in my head, and every single thing that I had doubts about or questions about or concerns about was answered in those books. And I read every book I could get my hands on. And that summer, what was nice about growing up in Florida is that it was an island. So I'd leave the season at Notre Dame and I'd go home to Florida. And you can be involved in hockey in Florida if you want to or not. It can be there or it cannot be there. And so I would go back to Florida, and if I needed space, I could find space. And during that summer, we had I think we might have had a month between when the season ends and we go back for summer school and training. I would spend, we grew up near a beach, and I'd go to the beach and I'd run about 1.5 miles, 2 miles down the beach in Florida, and I'd find this giant log, and I would sit there and I'd start meditating, and I would meditate for an hour, sometimes 30 minutes, sometimes 2 hours. And I would just zone out on focusing on crafting myself. Who do I want to be? How do I want to act? How do I want to carry myself? That was first and foremost for me. Like, what's the person I want to be?
Yeah.
Because I didn't even know that you can choose that. I didn't understand that. Like, I can craft the characteristics that I want to represent Noah. Up until that point, I didn't know. So that was really exciting to learn. And so all of a sudden now, like, if I need to be more aggressive, I can teach myself how to be more aggressive. If I need to be more confident, I can be more confident, et cetera, et cetera. And then in addition to that, I can sit there and I always wanted to be able to carry the puck up from behind the net like Bobby Orr and go down and score goals. So I would visualize going back, picking the puck up in the corner, coming around the net, faking the first defender or the first forechecker, dishing it off to a winger, getting the puck back, beating the guy, going down, scoring the goal, you know, and going through scenario after scenario after scenario. And when I came back the following year, it was like the first year I ever saw with my eyes open. It was amazing. And so that year at Notre Dame, I wound up being like voted the most improved player and you know, things like that. And it was great to see that whole new world open up. It was I mean, I'm sure you've seen it with the kids that you've coached, and I've seen it now with the kids that I've taught this to. Your whole mind expands and you realize the possibilities of your world are endless. And so that was phenomenal. So that was another like puzzle piece that just went into place.
Right.
And so now all of a sudden my game gets a little bit higher. And all of a sudden now, like we were talking about not being a part of the community and not being a hockey guy, all of a sudden now, like, I'm a hockey guy now. You know what I mean? Like, I'm confident. I'm getting focused. I can be aggressive. I can be in your face. I can, all the characteristics that you think of a hockey player, there are things that I would say that I kind of instilled and crafted because I needed to. It was a matter of survival and improving.
Yeah.
And then most importantly, I don't know if you had any questions on that, I could stop.
No, I mean, I think that's,
okay.
you know, that's, I mean, I love what you're talking about because you know, inside I'm smiling because it's awesome when you see that in a kid and it's opening the possibility of a new choice, right? And I don't know, like how I talk about autopilot, and I don't know if I use the right words or my terminology when I'm talking about the kids,
what it was.
but like we often just go through, right? We go through life 100%. And we just go through and we do the best we can with what we know. And then all of a sudden you give this kid, I don't care how old he is, whether he's 14 or 19, this opportunity to maybe make a new decision, right? And now you put him in charge of a steering wheel that he never really knew that he was in charge of before. And all of a sudden it's like, holy shit. Yeah. And then they execute and maybe they get a good result. And then they figure they can, you know, then they execute again. And I just love that. I mean, because you're talking about, again, you sitting there on the, you know, on the logs, meditating about who you want to be. Like, I mean, that does sound super spiritual. Maybe for some people listening, like way out there, but that's essentially exactly what it is. I mean,
it is.
And I use it first and foremost as a tool for hockey because that's what these players care about first and foremost, right? Like, what type of player do you need to be, right? First of all, or what type of player can you embody more fully, right? That suits your certain intangibles. But then outside of that too, right? Like, how are you going to show up in the locker room? What type of teammate are you going to be? You know, how are you going to represent the sweater that you wear? And these are all choices at the end of the day, you know? And then if you align those with the fact that, yes, this is also, these choices not only like help me as a human, but they help me with my opportunity and longevity and all these other things, like they're self-serving as well as helping others. My gosh, like there's so many things that you can just grab onto. And I don't know what kid's going to grab onto what, right? But like you can grab onto a multitude of reasons about why these little micro decisions matter. And it's super empowering. And so anyways, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's me going long-winded listening to your story, but that sounds like exactly what it was. You found a new option and you decided to take this new option, and holy shit, it ended up working for you.
It was exactly that. And it was the best. And I've since called Dave, like I talked to Dave about it, like how much he impacted my entire life, because there's no way that I would be the person that I am today if it wasn't for Dave. And that means now, especially, like, it's more important now. And I laugh with my wife. Her dad was a Major League Baseball player. He was a pitcher. and she was a soccer player at Notre Dame as well. And they would have conversations in the car about confidence and being sure of yourself and visualizing and focusing when she was like 10, 11. And it's one of those things where you realize like that advantage of having those conversations as a kid from a parent who played that high level of anything, it doesn't even have to be sports, is such a massive advantage to be exposed to that because of all the reasons you just listed. Because you see the steering wheel, as you put it. I didn't even know there was a steering wheel there, right? Let alone grabbing a hold of it.
Yeah.
And it's so empowering and it's so important. And that's what, I mean, it's awesome to be on here and talking with you. And to use the California term, stoked to be here. And yeah, it's great to get that message out. And so Dave imparted that on me. But the irony is I still like sort of know how to play hockey, right? Because now my brain's turned on. Now somebody's got to really teach me how to play hockey. In comes Jeff Jackson. And so Jeff, when he came there, he was very strict. Yeah, like we like to have fun on that team. We like to go out, we like to party, and we like to enjoy ourselves. That's for sure. And when Jeff got there, he had curfews, he had morning workouts, he had accountability, he had discipline, and he had everything that comes with that. And to say that me and him, I don't think that either one of us thought that we would be chummy when we first met. But he taught me how, I mean, for the lack of a better term, how to be a man and how to be accountable and how to be disciplined and how to be on time and how to just the rigidity of discipline and accountability. He instilled that in me. And he also was the first guy that broke the game down to a point where I now understood like, oh, we're doing this, this, and this so that this, this, and this happens. And if I make this play, these things are going to open up and this is going to happen. So I finally started to see the game, you know, from a higher viewpoint. Up until that point, I didn't see it. And so now my junior year, I have the head game, right? I'm learning how to play hockey. And now in comes my senior year where I don't have any pressure because I'm not a highly talented NHL guy. I'm not a prospect. I'm nobody. I'm going to work in investment banking when I'm done. And so I have the head game. Jeff has taught me the game on the ice because of Yari at Skate On. I had unbelievable world-class skill. All those things come together my senior year. And I think I was one of the better defensemen for sure in college hockey that year, I think. And so Kyle Lawson, who was on our team, was drafted by the Carolina Hurricanes. Ron Francis came out to watch Kyle Lawson because he was scouting him. Ron Francis sees me play. I guess he likes what he sees. Our season ends. I'll never forget we lost to Alabama Huntsville that year, which is we went to like 2 or 3 overtimes with Alabama Huntsville and then lost to Michigan State in like the round of 8 or something like that, like right before the Final Four that year. And we go back to campus where they're partying, hanging out. I get a call from my agent and he goes, "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow?" And I'm like, "We're partying." "What are you talking about? 16 years?" It's like, it's go time, baby. Like we're drinking, we're having fun. This is the best. And because as you can probably tell, I like to have fun. That's for sure. No matter what we're doing, like we could be squatting 450 pounds and about to start, you know, our legs are going to fall off. I'm going to figure out a way to have fun with that.
Yeah.
So my agent calls, he says, "Hey, you got to get to Chicago tomorrow." I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "Because you're going to sign in the NHL, you dummy." What? Okay. So I answer this call at a party. My buddies are like, "What was that?" I'm like, "That's my agent." They go, "What do you want?" I go, "He says I'm going to sign in the NHL." They're like, "What?" Yeah. So wake up the next day, drive to Chicago. And I'm like, "Scott, you for real?" He's like, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay, we got the Islanders on the line. I think they were like somewhere near rookie cap. Carolina was on the line. They were near rookie cap or something like that." And I was like, "Get the Panthers on the phone." I don't care what they're paying. I'm going to the Panthers. Like I would kill to play for the Panthers. They weren't interested. And so after, looking through the deals and what everybody needed, the Hurricanes were like the clear choice. So I freaking drive back to South Bend. I'll never forget. I was in the car driving back. All my friends, everybody on campus, like we're having a party. They're on the front. We have two houses next to each other. They're on the front porch. I pull up, and my buddies are like, "What happened?" I go, "I'm signing with the Hurricanes." They're like, "Are you shitting me?" And so we start like it was great. The only problem was the next day I had to be on a flight to Albany because I had to play there. And so go to Albany. It was the best. And so show up, whirlwind, as it always is when you do that kind of thing. Show up. I think I got there on a Sunday. We're playing on Wednesday. My D partner ends up being Johnny Boychuk, who played for the Bruins. Unbelievable human being. And so we play. I think like we had a couple of points between the two of us. I'm doing an interview, and I'll never forget. He was like, "Hey, don't forget your D partner. Don't forget your D partner." I'm like, "I got you." And I was like, "I just really want to thank my D partner. He really held my hand and showed me how to break into the league and stuff." And so I finished the year in Albany, and it was amazing. Tom Rowe, who we both know, he called me into his office, and he basically says, like, Babs, Carolina needs a small, fast, mobile defenseman. If you play like you just played, like you got a shot to make it. And so if you remember, I went from a guy who's just happy to be there, stoked to be involved with the game, super depression, build myself back up. And now this guy's telling me that I might make the fucking NHL. Like, are you kidding me? So to say my head got a little bit out of control, I think would be fair. I was so happy and so excited, and I've never been this determined and focused, and I just wanted to make the NHL. Because up to this point, like I never really thought it was possible. You want it,
Right.
but I didn't think it was possible. And then to have somebody say that it could happen, I mean, I was out of my mind in excitement and focus to the point where I was like, I don't care what I have to do. I don't care what wall I have to run through. I don't care how much training I have to do. I'm making the NHL, period, end of story. So I'm on the track at Notre Dame running that summer, and my knee had been bugging me that year. And I'm running, and at this point, I couldn't squat as heavy as I used to. I couldn't train as hard as I used to. Something pops. And I'm running. I'm like, oh, that's not good. And lo and behold, what had happened, so a couple of surgeries later, I find out that my patella tendon was attached to my femur a little bit off from birth. And this is like 4 doctors and traveling the country trying to find rehab. And 3 years later, post this injury, that my patella tendon was attached improperly, and it wound up grinding down my cartilage. So I essentially now have arthritis in my left knee. And so I sign, I get over the moon excited. And that summer, I can no longer lift heavily. I can no longer do plyometrics. I can no longer train explosively. And now I got to go play with the best players literally in the world. So good luck, kid. Have at it. So I go to training camp. I do the best I can. As we talked about, I got to do 2 of the preseason games, which were, I mean, absolutely phenomenal. Like even those and experiencing the NHL at that level is everything that you think and hope it will be. And the guys that I met, like Eric Stahl, Ron Francis, Rod Brendamore, Ray Whitney, they were just the nicest, kindest, most wonderful people I'd ever met. They came up, they said, "Hey, no, it's great to meet you. We're pumped to have you part of the organization. If you need anything, let me know." And I just found like the higher the level of guy, the better a human being they were. And maybe that's just a hockey thing, but that had an impact for the rest of my life, where I realized that like, if you think you're good, that means you should be a good person, more importantly. And so for those 2 years I played professionally, it was just nonstop pain. Like I realize now in adult life, I was taking so much ibuprofen and acetaminophen that like I was basically high. And you'll appreciate this. Before one of the games, I started drinking coffee. I didn't know why I was drinking so much coffee. I started drinking coffee out of my mind, and I realized it was because I was high before my games, basically from all the painkillers. And I'll never forget, there was one game where Trevor Gillies looked at me and goes, Babs. And I was like, oh, he goes, get a pulse, man. I was like, and it's one of those things that like sticks in your head, you know, and like I'll be on a run and it'll just like pop up and I'll hear Gillies' voice. And I'm like, that was over a decade ago. Like, why are you still thinking about that? But yeah, so that thank God I had the mental training and the things that you teach and that I learned, because being at the door with the key in the door and your hand on the doorknob and the door's cracked open and then having the door slam shut because you can no longer perform was a trauma that it took me a while to get over, honestly. And it really sucked, especially because of the way that I came up and not really thinking that it could be a thing. And then it was a thing and then it gets slammed shut. And so I think that has really, like, the whole experience really softened and strengthened in all the right ways in order to be able to relate, as you were saying, anything that any kid's going through. For the most part, I've probably been around there and can find them and meet them on their level. You know what I mean? Like if they're playing youth hockey and their parents are giving them bad advice, I get it. If they're playing the USHL and they're trying to crack into D1, I get it. Like, I get the stress and I get the frustration. And to your point about gratitude, there was a girl that I was coaching, Dominic Petrie, who was trying out for the U.S. Women's Olympic team. And she called me one night because she was over there and she wasn't playing well and she was all afraid. And she was like, I'm not playing well. Like, I'm nervous. And it was going back to your comment about gratitude. I said, Dom, what are you doing? And she goes, I'm trying out for the U.S. national team. I go, yeah. I go, what are you up to again tomorrow? And she goes, we got to skate tomorrow. I go, yeah. Who are you skating with? She goes, the national team. You know that. I'm trying out for the national. I go, yeah. What are you doing again? She goes, I'm trying out for the U.S. Olympic team. I go, yeah, dummy. That's pretty fun. Like, you're at Harvard getting a degree. You're going to have a job at wherever you want, private equity, hedge fund, you name it. And you're trying out for the Olympic team. I have an idea for you. Start thinking about how exciting and how fun it is that you get to go play hockey and try out for the Olympic team. Don't worry about the results. Go focus on how much fun you're going to have and how much fun this is and how much fun it is to compete and how much fun it is to get in somebody else's face and how much fun it is to go perform. And I promise you, the results will take care of themselves. And sure enough, as you're well aware, when you start focusing on the right things for the right person, the outcomes present themselves. And she didn't make the team, which that's her fault. She should have made the team because that would have made my story a lot better. But like she loved it. It was great, and it was a good experience for her. And yeah, to go back to the mental thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it is about the experience. I mean, that's the funny thing too. Funny, and well, that's the word that I'm going to use again. But the go have fun, right? Like, from parents, I mean, go have fun, right? I mean, it's awesome advice. But it's like, again, how? Like, what is exactly fun? You know, and the fun of the game does change at some point too, right? It goes from being like this game, and a lot of times I use the terminology like, you go from playing hockey to being a hockey player.
Yes.
And when you go to be a hockey player, there's a different way that the game becomes fun, and you need to connect to it. It's a new way to have fun, and there is that childlike way to have fun still too, and you want to connect to that passion. But you can't become too serious. And there's very, very few that can actually take that, you know, that business-like, methodical approach to a game, right, and be successful at it. So, you know, I mean, no, great point. I mean, like, I think that is, and especially now I see a lot of these guys come up. You talked about yourself and your team, right? Like, we came up in an era where we played frickin' hard. But you know what? We played hard off the ice too. Like, it was, that was just the only way we knew, right? And now it's like the other side of that coin seems to have taken, you know, is less than, and now it's like, it's all about the game, and it's all about trying to get it right, and it's all about not screwing up, and people forget why they're out there, right? Yes. Like, people forget 100%. Why they actually are playing. So no, I think that's a great point. I mean, the connecting players to the fun and what's fun for them, and maybe making some new connections about what fun actually is a thing.
It's awesome that you say that, because I wrote, I got bored and I started writing. I just started writing. And one of the things that I wrote about is how the higher that you get, I wrote a blog post about it, about how the higher you get, fun changes, right? The fun becomes like, I get to wake up tomorrow morning at 6 and go lift weights as hard as I can. I get to go on the ice and compete as hard as I can against the best players in the world. I get to go find out how good I am. That's fun. And it's fun to push yourself, and it's fun to compete, and it's fun to screw up, and it's fun to fail, to find where your limits are so then you can go exceed them, right? Those are the things that become fun, as you were saying. And then it's fun to become a professional. It's fun to carry yourself that way. It's awesome. The whole thing. And it carries on to the rest of your life, right? Because then you got to be a mentor, a parent, in business, you got to have a business meeting and it's high stress situation. How are you going to calm yourself down? How are you going to focus? How are you going to relate to the other party on the other side of the table? It's phenomenal.
No, for sure. I mean, and like the one, I mean, I always, the one I use, and I mean, you probably see it too. I mean, what hockey player doesn't like to score goals, right?
Fact.
And yeah, and everyone wants to be, I mean, on the power play, and everyone thinks that, that because they're on the power play on one team, they're going to be on the power play on the next team, and they're going to continue to score all these goals. Like, if that's the only way you have fun with hockey is by scoring goals, that's going to dry up pretty darn soon, and so it's just sort of interesting. And that's what I sort of mean by like the childlike way to have fun is generally those types of things, right?
Yep.
Doing these fun deeks or scoring the goals or doing the things, but those will still remain fun. And believe every professional goal I scored, I had a lot of fun doing it. But you had to connect a lot of different dots to have fun in different ways, for sure. And sometimes players need help with that. And that's the other thing. I think players, you can find that. And then players can make the choice whether they want to make those decisions or not, or else they go do something else, right?
Unquestionably.
But at least helping them with the realization that, yeah, this will help. I mean, if you want to do it. But
absolutely,
no, man, I love everything about what you're talking about. We're at the hour and a half mark here, and because our internet wasn't working well enough today, now we're doing this in the late PM hours, so we should probably cut her off. But yeah, man, like pleasure to get to know you, pleasure to meet you, and I'm sure this conversation will continue between the two of us. But before we go, though, you talked about these books, and I think it would be a good one to allow you to talk about your book, which I haven't had the opportunity to get my hands on. What is that? And so people listening can have an opportunity to maybe go find it. And then my part two to that question is, of all the books that you read when you were at Notre Dame and Mr. Poulin guided you to them, is there one book by another author other than yourself that you would say that somebody should go pick up?
Oh, yeah. So my book is called The Mental Manual for Athletes. It's just self-published on Amazon. And the whole gist of it is to take the 10 years that I spent learning and the things that Dave taught me, et cetera, and condense it into the shortest, smallest, easiest to digest format I could possibly get it into. So it's purposefully short, concise, and to the point. It's only like 30 pages so that it can introduce the whole world of meditation, visualization, confidence, mantras, et cetera, so that anybody can access it, primarily for kids. I've had a lot of good people have told me that they really liked it. And there is one bad review on there, which is one of my best friends from here. He's an ex-tennis guy, and he went on and he was like, this is bullshit. You said it was 32 pages or something. It's only 31 or something like that. So he's a good buddy. He had to do that. Yeah. So that's how good of a friend he is. And as far as books at Notre Dame, there's two. There's The Mental Edge, which I'm sure you've read, by Kenneth Baum, was the first one I ever read. And then one of my favorite, honestly, and this was discussed by myself, David Booth, and Mark Stewart, like forever ago. There's one called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. We all really enjoyed, all of us, which I found particularly ironic because I love cars and I love Ferraris. So I don't know if that's a foreshadow or what.
I haven't heard of The Mental Edge, so I'll throw that out there, and I will get it though. And there was a time in my life where I was a very prolific reader.
Yeah.
Probably my 20s actually, when I was trying to figure that out too. Like me, myself in the sport, even me, myself outside of the sport, trying to figure out spirituality and religion and a bunch of these things. And also, obviously, when you're a hockey player, one of the greatest gifts you have is time, right? You show up to the rink in the morning and you're usually done by noon, and you have all the rest of the day to do what you want with. And so I'm thankful that I did take some time and on the bus trips too to read. And I think I did read The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, but I'm not 100% sure. But I
Yeah.
did write it down. But I did do quite a venture in that type of. I mean, I can tell by the title that it's probably something that I would be interested in either way. But
Yeah, it's the
anyways,
best.
well, that's awesome. I'm going to check out the Mental Edge. You'll see, or not the Mental Edge, and your book, the mental. You said the Mental Manual. Is that correct?
Mental manual for
Right, the Mental
athletes.
Manual. Awesome.
Yeah.
Love the alliteration. And yeah, I'll be your next review, and I won't complain about the number of pages.
I love it. Love it.
Perfect.
Well, thanks for having me on. This is awesome. It's super fun. This is a ball. So
Well, now you're giving me a reason to get down to San Diego. I told you earlier that my wife and I absolutely love that zone, so maybe we'll have to get down there, and I'll have to work with some of your kids down there on a vacation.
Get out here. We got a spare bedroom. You'll find a place here, and it'll be
Awesome.
the best.
Awesome, Noah. Awesome. Well, you have a great night, and
You too.
we'll continue this on another day, I'm sure.
All right, Jason. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for listening to the entire episode of 117 with Mr. Noah Babin. Yeah, it was a fun interview. It was a really fun, and I hate using the word interview actually because don't feel that I really interview. I feel it's more conversational. At least I feel that's when the best episodes happen is when we're just chatting, and I hopefully that you feel like you are part of the conversation and you feel connected to it. I know Noah and his story were worth telling. So there were times where I definitely just let him roll with it, and we were able to have a little bit of back and forth there many times, and I appreciate those opportunities to do that. It's fun to hear people use similar language to describe something that I'm so passionate about, and Noah and I caught ourselves at times doing that, and yeah, I could definitely see Noah and I having a conversation. And actually, I sent him an email after full disclosure saying that I am looking for new coaches to become Up My Hockey coaches, that I can see that my hockey is growing. Right now, I am the one who handles every single coaching call there is, whether it's an individual or a private client or a team or an association. And those days are soon becoming unmanageable, and I'm going to need to grow a team. And I put a bug in Noah's ear. I mean, obviously, I'd have to know more about him as well, but it just seemed like a good fit. He's come from the right spot. I love the fact that he has the credibility and experience within the game. I like that he's in California. I like that he has first-person experience. I like that he is passionate about it. Definitely seems to be connected to the athletes that he works with, and those are all very, very important drivers for me to consider. So anyways, I have no idea what Noah's going to say or if that's going to happen, but I guess why I'm bringing that up is more or less to share with you the journey of Up My Hockey and kind of next steps. And if you are someone out there who is a coach or who is looking to get involved in something that you're passionate about, and if mindset is one of those things and you would like to become potentially a part of the Up My Hockey community on the coaching side and want to be an accredited Up My Hockey coach, that would be amazing. So by all means, I don't need to find you. You can find me. And if you sound like I'm speaking to you right now, that this is something that you're super interested about, you'd like to work directly with me and with my players and grow the message and support players to become the best that they can be under the programs of Up My Hockey, then by all means reach out, Jason at upmyhockey.com. I'd love to set up a discovery call with you and see what that looks like. And if Noah is listening to this, the email is there. And anyways, I'm sure we'll have a conversation anyways, not even about that, but just about mental fitness in general and how we collectively can support our players the best. I think that as discussed in this conversation that you just heard, I think today's player needs this support potentially more than any other generation of player. I think it's the missing link for a lot of players, if not the vast majority of players in today's game. And if we can supply a mental edge, supply just this, that little grit, that little bit of FU, that little bit of dedicated, dialed in persistence. I don't give a rip. I think that shows up. in the players that have it, more so than it ever has. And I love helping players find that spark and find that edge and find that little piece that might be missing of the puzzle. As Noah said, he kept having these pieces fall in line, and sometimes we don't even know the pieces that are missing. And that's one of the things that I love about what I do, is that we can help put those pieces together. So anyways, if you are a potential coach, or if you are somebody that wants to work with me or Up My Hockey, you know where to find me. UpMyHockey.com is all things Up My Hockey, whether it's on ice development or whether it's the UMH 68, a tournament that you wanted to be a part of here in British Columbia, or whether you're a coach that wants to, be considered to be part of the team, or whether you're a parent of a player or a player yourself that wants to work within a program. Find it at upmyhockey.com. Reach out. Let's have a chat. Let's get you rolling. Let's get you dialed in. Let's make this the best season you are ever going to have. It is the one thing that you haven't done, and it is the one thing that can make your skill set shine. So with that, hope everyone is having a great week. Be grateful. It's been super crazy here locally. There's fires all around us, and there's smoke in the air, and people are losing their homes, and it's amazing just how a community can come together and support everyone, and what we're seeing here on the outside amidst all this anxiety and unsettled environment, and there's so much insecurity around us. But people are finding a way to get through, finding a way to be grateful, and finding a way to get through the challenges. And I'm just grateful every day. There's a reason to be a high performer, and that is to understand that every day is a gift. Every day is an absolute gift. And if you have something that you're passionate about, and for the people that are listening to this, it's probably hockey in some form or capacity, be grateful for another day to chase that dream and to get better at what you love to do, because you never know what's around the corner. So everyone have a great week. And until next time, play hard and keep your head up.